Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ryan Edwards. I'm on the Community Impact team at United Way of Central Ohio, where I lead our work in student success, which includes our relationships and investments in early care and education, high school graduation, and an emerging community-wide effort called Success by Third Grade. Our conversation today is centered around one of our communities as well as communities nationwide most critical services, early childcare and education. While we have always known the importance of high quality early care for our youngest learners, this pandemic has underscored and highlighted its key role in our social infrastructure. Not only does it prepare our little ones for school and future success, it also is a work amplifier. It ensures that parents and caregivers have a safe, trusted, caring place for their kids to be during the day while they're at work or searching for work. Today, we're excited to be joined by leaders in our local early care and education network to share more about themselves, about their work, some of the bright spots that are happening in the work that they're doing, discuss some of the challenges that we're experiencing locally, and to share some ways that we can come together to support their critical work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator today, my friend and colleague, Shannon Morgan, who's the SVP and Director of Client and Community Relations at PNC Bank. She's going to dive into conversation with our panel. So thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you, Shannon, for leading our conversation.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm so happy to be here. On behalf of my PNC colleagues and our local Early Learning Center providers, thank you to the United Way of Central Ohio for bringing these panelists together today for this important discussion about the foundational role of early childhood and its impact on long-term student success. At PNC, since 2004, our foundation has provided tools and resources that help develop curious young minds. We're proud to serve children from birth to 5, particularly a subset of underserved children, by empowering their caregivers and supporting their teachers. Now let's get started. First, today, let's introduce our panelists. Please help me in welcoming Gina Ginn, the CEO of Columbus Early Learning Centers, Kristin Geiger, the Director of Youth Services at St. Stephen's Community House, Jennifer Haddow, Chief Program Officer at the Childhood League Center, and Bobbi Shannon, Executive Director of Early Learning at the YMCA of Central Ohio. Thanks for your time today. Let's start by having each of you share your background and what led you to where you are today. Gina, we'll begin with you.
Thanks, Shannon. Good afternoon to everyone. I hope that you're taking this time to listen and eat lunch. It's very important. So please do that while we are on the panel today. So my background, I started in the nonprofit sector in nonprofit management, and it followed my educational path as well. So I have my PhD from Ohio State in workforce development and education. And between my professional career and my educational career, my term as the CEO for Columbus Early Learning Centers really marries the two of those together. And it really works to help, I think, our organization make sure that we have a really solid foundation and understanding why we do the work that we do and why it is important for families in each of our communities to have access to programs and services like those at CELC and Childhood League, the Y, and St. Stephen's. So thanks for joining today, and we are looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Gina. Kristin.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I have been here at St. Stephen's for about 17 years, and I've been working in our early learning center for about the last 5 years. What led me to this is I had some developmental psychology classes in undergrad that I absolutely loved. I loved studying the process of the brain, learning why we do the things that we do. And so I just developed passion for working with children. So I am thankful to be here for 17 years, and then of those last 5 with our early learning center.
Terrific. Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, yes, thanks again also for having me be part of your panel today. My background is mainly in education. I started out working in a preschool setting as my income while I was in college, and I was going to school to be a special education teacher, and I did that. And then I moved to the administrator role and have just always had a very, very strong love for working with students that maybe don't get the same start in life that others do. The preschool that I worked at way back years ago worked with a population that needed to get some life experiences that maybe they had not had. And I was in the school district and was fortunate enough to take the CPO role here at the Childhood League Center, where my love of special education and my love for young children really merge. I also bring, I think, a little bit of a unique lens to the importance of early childhood experiences through my youngest son, who has a disability. And while my other two children just hit their milestones, just as I would have expected them to, watching a child unfold when they needed those supports gave me a unique lens, I think, to how important it is to have opportunities to children that need those extra supports. So
Thanks
again,
for sharing that personal connection. It's a strong connection, Jennifer. Thank you. Bobbi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bobbi Shannon with the YMCA. And like others, my background was in education. I've been in the early learning field for about 20 years, but I started out in elementary ed. Personally, I grew up in poverty. I saw what poverty had done to generations of my family. And when I was in school, it kind of clicked with me that I was good at school and education could be that equalizer. So that's how I ended up in the field. And then I did a shift in college. I took a couple classes in early learning and started hearing about the wonders of brain development in the first 5 years, and the impact that that had seemed so huge to me. And it was something that at the time people really didn't talk about. So to me, that was always my passion, and my job at the Y and in this community kind of lets me marry that personal passion and my professional one.
Thank you, Bobbi. Next, we'll just ask each panelist to briefly tell us a little bit more about the mission of your organization. Kristin, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Sure. So the mission of St. Stephen's Community House is to strengthen our families and empower our community. We take a holistic approach to serve the entire family. So we've got our youngest neighbors who are in our early learning center, youth services and family services, as well as senior services. So we do provide services to families not only in the Linden community, but all over Columbus.
Thank you. Jennifer?
So here at the Childhood League Center, our mission is a little more wordy than Kristin's, but we change the trajectory of a child's life through innovative early childhood education, transdisciplinary teams, and family-centered partnership. And I think that we really take pride that we really try to wrap around that family and that child with services from the very beginning. We have a social worker here. We have a behavioral interventionist. We have a full team that can really try to meet all those needs and connect families with community. And our population, our birth through 3 population is children that are have IFSP. They either have a developmental delay or a diagnosis or disability. Then in our preschool program, we have a mixture of children from all over Franklin County. And some of those children are continuing with special needs, but also some of those children are children that are coming that maybe need, again, some more life experiences or are our typicals. So it's a big mixture here in our preschool program.
Thanks for that overview. Bobbi?
So at the Y, we build healthy kids, healthy families, healthy communities, and they kind of build on each other. So our mission really is to serve the whole community and to cater our programs to each community and what they need. So while we have early learning around Columbus and in the surrounding counties, we also have other programs hoping to serve that whole family.
Thank you. Gina?
So our mission is to help young learners develop, families succeed, and neighborhoods thrive. And I think that you can kind of see that there's a thread between all of us and our missions within each of the communities that we serve that really For CELC, and I know for all of the rest of the panelists, our organizations really try at a deep-seated level in each community to really work from that grassroots level and really help each of the families in those neighborhoods to grow and thrive in the way that is best for them and their families, while also providing those supports to kids to give them the best start in life.
Well, you can all hear how dedicated this esteemed group of panelists is and their organizations to serving families and children here in Central Ohio. But let's move and talk a little bit more now about the pandemic. We've heard about that across industries and how industries have been impacted, and early childhood is no stranger to that. So it's been really highlighted how critical the role of dependable early education and childcare is during this time. Jennifer, we'll start with you, but what can providers do to ensure they have the support needed to move forward and help serve our community as we continue to move out of this pandemic?
Well, I think that awareness, things such as this conversation are super, super important. Early childhood education, child care centers, the pandemic was very, very difficult. We all probably shut down immediately, then we reopened under the pandemic rules. And it's taken a toll. And I know that when the Childhood League Center opened their doors last fall of 2020, we used our pandemic ratios. And so we were not able to take as many children. We have workers that were also dealing with their own issues of finding childcare, that maybe their kids were older and they were doing homeschooling, but they're not old enough to be able to be at home. And awareness right now is one of the big things for us to all take a really hard look at how has this pandemic impacted the early childhood education here in Franklin County and in neighboring areas also.
Of course, thank you. Bobbi, we'll move to you.
Sure, I agree with all of that. I would add the word appreciation as well. So we have staff that, like Jennifer said, worked all through the pandemic. So our employees were there on the front line before we really knew what was happening, and they're tired. They've been working a long time, and a lot of times they are working for low wages, as we know. So in addition to talking about the importance, I would love to see the profession elevated. We all know the importance. We all know they're valued and appreciated, but I don't know that they always feel that from outside the field. In addition, I feel like each of these conversations comes back in one way or another to funding, but funding is what is needed. We are operating at smaller ratios. We are serving less kiddos. And so the business model needs some help and some additional funding just to make the day-to-day operations work.
Thank you for sharing. Gina, how about your perspective?
So I think one thing to remember is that the pandemic isn't over. I think the other perspective is that the children that most of us serve can't be vaccinated. So these children, as we are seeing with the new variants, are becoming more and more vulnerable to the virus, and protecting them is really our ultimate job, right? So all of us are still masked. All of us are still taking, all of the universal precautions and spending a lot more money on expenses for continuing to provide a healthy community and a healthy and safe environment for the kids to attend every day. So I think that's a really strong point that we need to make to the community and raise the level of awareness on. And I think the second point for our community is to understand the impact that, early learning is being hit just as hard as every other service industry in regards to a lack of employees. And so we need people to want to return to work in the early childhood sector. And maybe if you've never thought of it before, maybe it is something that you would want to do now. And I think from that perspective to the next about the families that we're serving, that because the job market has seen really significant changes and almost an artificial increase in starting wages, it's starting to price families out of the ability to be able to qualify for support, to be able to have safe, quality, early education and care for their children. So I think that those are some of the three kind of building blocks that we need further in our community so that they can help us through this, through what is still a continuing pandemic, actually on all of our fronts.
Thank you, Gina. Kristin, we'll ask you to share as well.
Sure. In addition to what all the panelists have said, you know, as we're all serving the children and the families, I think that some community partnerships are super helpful. Our families are facing some challenges that they may have never faced before. So making sure that they're getting access to assistance to basic needs. So whether it be with rental assistance, utility assistance, food, there are some basic needs that our families are encountering that, and we're so blessed to have staff who have a great rapport with the parents. The parents will let the teachers know right away, hey, I need help with, you know, these 3 items. Can you help me? Can you tell me where to go? Point me in the right direction. So we are just super thankful to have great community partnerships in addition to the services that our agency offers. As the panelists said, and as Gina said, that the pandemic is still going on. So these are some challenges that will not go away anytime soon, but making sure that we're all working together as a community to really lift up the families that are in need. I think that that's the last thing that I would add to the point.
Great, thank you.
Shannon, if I can add one more thing that I think ties together a lot of the things that people say, and I know it's a basic assumption to us, but for people that are maybe trying to really say, how can I help support? No, we are not in a field where we can continue to do our job at home. You know, we have to be here. We have to be present. We have to wear masks all days because, as someone said, you know, our children aren't vaccinated. We're trying to work in a family unit where we are constantly trying to look at the environment and keep our children as protected and our staff is protected with limited exposure. I mean, it's not that we don't have this option to be able to provide quality or early childhood education experiences. You know, we want to do this in person. So for, you know, the staff does get tired. It is hard. And you come back every day and you do it again. And people love their jobs and that's why they're here. But it is something that, you know, we have to be hands, you know, feet on the ground, hands, you know, they're working with our children. And that's a lot for our staff. It's a demanding job.
It absolutely is a demanding job. And I'm a parent myself and I want my kids in person and in school because the learning benefits are so much greater. So, you know, the themes we're hearing from all of you, critical needs, early childhood, awareness, funding, lots of topics there. And I would be remiss if I just didn't take a quick second while we're talking about all these things, and community collaboration should be added to that list too, to mention, you know, the United Way of Central Ohio. They brought us together today for this conversation, and with the focus on student success long-term, not just in early childhood, we are excited that we have an opportunity to work with United Way and all of you to ensure these local investments will make an impact long-term. So when we think about that impact and all the things that go into it, all the things all of you have mentioned that are required, student success, talk to me a little bit, and our group here that's joined us today, about the difference between high quality early learning and daycare. Tell us why early childhood education is so important to a child's development. Bobbi, let's start with you to talk about that development.
Sure. I have to first say thank you for this question because I think it is key that we try to unify what we call things in this profession. And when I was early in my career, I was at a conference and the speaker made a statement that has stuck with me. She said, "We care for children, we don't care for days." So because of that, I think that kind of sums it up. We really don't want to take the child piece out of what we're calling it, because we are doing more than just sitting there. It is not babysitting, which I think is what people think of when they hear the term daycare. And in addition, it's a little outdated. So all of you on the call, you could help us out in that awareness effort. If you could stop using the term daycare and call it childcare or early learning, either one is a better fit. Those two encompass what we are actually doing. And we are looking at the whole child, their whole development. There's academic pieces, there's social pieces, emotional, we've got language in there. There's a lot going on in brain development. And with a quality program, we're doing a lot more than babysitting. I could go on this topic, but I will pause and let someone else chime in.
Well stated. Kristin, why don't we let you take an opportunity?
Sure, absolutely. I think that I would add to that and to say that we do have some intentionality behind our activities. The things that we're planning, and it may not always be visible in our small group activities, the things that the students are working on, there's intention behind it. And we can tailor those activities based on each student's developmental need or where they are developmentally. So I would say that it's definitely not just babysitting. It's not just sitting there while the children are playing. We have thought behind it. There's plans behind it, highly educated staff that are working day in and day out to bring these activities to the students. And I heard a podcast this morning that said something that I wanted to share really quickly that said, essentially that we are, as a society, benefiting from the passion of these teachers. Bobbi mentioned earlier that these staff are working for very low wages, but they are dedicated. They are passionate about this field and about their jobs. So as a society, we're benefiting from that passion that they have for education. So it's definitely not babysitting.
That passion is true, and you can see it if you ever walk into an early learning center and watch a classroom in action. Jennifer and Gina, we'll pose the same question to both of you if you'd like to add.
Go ahead, Gina.
Thanks, Jennifer, and sorry about the technical difficulties as per usual with our Zoom age in this new pandemic world. I think to add on, it's this, I just echo all of the sentiments that everyone has already stated, that, the relationship, I think maybe the other thing is that the relationships that these teachers form with the children are really beneficial in helping them and their brain development, and how that that resiliency builds because of the relationships where children feel like they are safe and like that they can take risks and take chances. And I think that is something, those soft skills are something that are really, really important, and a part of what all high quality early learning centers really are trying to ensure, is that children have those experiences that they can take with them and set up as their building blocks for learning throughout.
Thank you.
The comments that have been made are just excellent. And if I can build on a couple of things, Bobbi talked about brain development. 90% of a child's brain development happens prior to kindergarten, 90%. And yet we know that early childhood education has not been given the attention that it should have been given in this country in the past few years. The new research that's coming out about brain development is just amazing. And it's great that we have people now looking at this and saying, how can we support this? Kristin was spot on when she says, you walk into a classroom and you see play, the intentionality behind those activities is something that, you could go in and you could talk to the teaching staff and they could explain to you what the intentionality, whether it's a child-based, a child interest lesson plan that you created or one that you created. There's so much intentionality behind the activities that those kids are involved with. And just that social skill, I know from being in the education world, the K through 12 world, having children that walk in with those soft skills and those social skills that is just a gift that you're giving to help prepare, set the stage for the learning that they're going to have poured into them in that K through 12 world. And so all of these things are just so important. You know, I see in the chat that someone's asking a question about outdoor learning, and maybe we'll get to that too. But we are fortunate here, and it was one of the things, I was not one of these original pioneers that tried to find the place where Childhood League Center landed, but they really wanted a large outdoor space in an urban setting. And so structuring that outdoor learning, that large muscle movement, all of that's so important to that child development. And absolutely, lots of times you're going to see outdoor learning that is also, again, still in Kristin's word, happening with intentionality for that child. But it's an important topic. I mean, the brain, we can't replace these years, and we want to get the children while they're here as much as possible from everywhere.
Thank you, Jennifer. You teed that up perfectly, because I think we should go to the chat and address some of the questions we've been receiving. And that outdoor learning one is really important when we think about gross motor skills and access to fresh air and play and creativity. So you talked about that a little bit. Do you have anything to add before we ask our other panelists to comment on outdoor learning as a outdoor environments as a learning option?
Well, I probably have more to add than you want me to, but you know, there's just outdoor learning is using that child's natural, you know, outdoor environment. There are so many things that that child can do for exploration, for that large muscle development, for the fine motor development. We're fortunate enough here to have, we're working on a science curriculum, a STEAM curriculum, where we're really trying to use that outdoor facility and bring some things indoors, or looking at discovery or comparison, or using, you know, all kinds of, I'm not prepared for this question, so I apologize, I'm kind of stumbling, but just using all kinds of things that are at their disposal outside that we can discover and talk about and compare and leave notes for another class. Did you see this? And the outdoor world is just full of learning opportunities for our child. So I think that more and more people are recognizing that the natural environment is just as important outdoors as some of our planned preschool type equipment. That's also very important. But I'll let someone else add on to that.
That's great. Thank you. We'll pose that to our other panelists. Please jump in.
So I can add to that a couple other opportunities while outside. There is a lot of research about being in nature and your mental health. And that's true for adults as well as kids. If you think about how much better you feel if you go take a walk outside during lunchtime. So getting kids out, getting them around dirt and trees and rocks and all of those natural elements really help, not just with their large modal development and all of the things that Jennifer mentioned, but their mental health and just that connection. The other piece is that the outdoor environment to us has been key during this pandemic, because it gives us a greater opportunity to space kids out and to separate them versus just our indoor. So we have taken advantage of the outdoor and really thought of it as an additional classroom space, because pretty much anything you can do inside the classroom, you can also do outside. It just takes a little bit of prep work.
Thank you for that, Bobbi. Gina, go ahead.
And thanks, Shannon. I might just add that it maybe two different angles. One, that many of our kids, especially because most of us work with low-income families, their housing may not offer or allow for them to have access to play spaces that are safe. And so that ability to have those safe play spaces outdoors that are attached and a part of our environments have been something that, you know, that really all of us pride ourselves on, and being able to give children access to those. And I think too, the other thing about the play spaces is that it gives the community opportunities with all of us to be a part of those spaces, because you're not directly interacting with the children, but you can help us to maintain those spaces and keep them spaces that are high quality and very attractive and exciting for kids with new materials and new equipment. And so as potential donors to United Way or volunteer groups with United Way, that is an opportunity for you to be involved with us and impact our kids by helping us with staining our fences and mulching our playgrounds and, cleaning the equipment. Although it might not seem fun, it really does it pays back in dividends, the fun that it provides our kids.
Absolutely. We have some other questions that have come in. Kristin, do you want to answer the outdoor? It looks like you just went off mute. I don't want to cut you off. Do you want to answer the outdoor question?
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Shannon said about having an additional classroom outdoors. And so we've done things such as bringing our sensory tables outside, including nature into our activities. And so it has been very helpful, especially during the pandemic.
Great. Thank you for adding that. Another topic that came up in our chat today is about masking. And so the question that was posed is, what impact does masking have on a child's language development? We'll go ahead and pose that to anyone who'd like to take that. Ooh, that seems like it's a tough question. Well, I think I'm wondering, is there an impact that masking could have? I mean, does a child not maybe learn as quickly their words or their vocabulary when they're not able to see? Do people wear clear masks? That was also one of the questions that was asked. Jennifer, it looks like you're ready to address that.
Well, I think that that's an excellent question. And I think it's something that we're going to have to look at. I was actually in a phone conversation with someone yesterday through Ohio State University about, I think it's time that we have to start saying, we need to look at some research on how the pandemic and some of the things with the pandemic are impacting children as they prepare for kindergarten. We all entered this in March of 2020, thinking maybe we'd be out of it by August of 2020. Well, we weren't. And as someone said, we're not yet, and we don't know when it will be. So we have to take this responsibility of saying, how is this impacting children's phonemic awareness? And that would include, things such as masks. So I think it's time we explore it. I can tell you here, when our speech therapists pull our children out, we have a very strict routine, just talking about that tiredness again of everything people have to consider. We have our mask on. The speech therapist will put their face shield on, then take their mask off, and then work with that child in that environment. Because if you're working on articulation, it's very important that they see that speech therapist's face. Then they'll put the mask back on before they take the shield off. We have it scripted for safety, but we also know that they need to be able to work with that speech therapist in a different environment. Same with some read alouds, depending on what the purpose of the read aloud is, the teacher might go through that same process. But I think it's a great question. And now we're in this long enough to say, what do we need to look at that some of these things could be impacting our children? And maybe a speech therapist, a speech language pathologist, they might have already a hypothesis of what they think is happening, but it's a great question to pose.
Absolutely. These are the things that a lot of us aren't thinking about on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for addressing that question, Jennifer. Another question that came up that I think is really important to when I explore opportunities for funding is family and parent engagement. So one of our participants today asked about how we engage parents and caregivers in the education process. And I know all of you do this daily, but I think folks probably aren't aware of all the different things you're doing to make sure that we're serving what we call the whole child through a family engagement model. So maybe Gina, I'll ask you to answer that first and then have others jump in.
Sure. Well, I think that, probably for all of us, parents are integral, right? They are the foundation of what it is that we are trying to do and accomplish with the children. And our job is just as much about empowering kids as it is about empowering parents and families. And so we have lots of different resources that we have available to families. We have our parent-child home program that also helps families to learn the tools that they need to help their child have foundational learning. We also do lots of parent engagement. Like now it's over Zoom, which isn't as fun as it used to be, but we still do it. And that has been a great way for us to share information about the pandemic, how it is happening, what it looks like in the classroom, because for a long time, parents weren't allowed into the centers. And so that was really our only way to be able to connect with them, was to have those parent engagements online, learning about different, things and topics. But I think parents are, they are just as much a part of what we do as our kids are, and making them as much a part of the process as the kids really helps us to do and be successful at what we do.
Thank you. Kristin, what about at St. Stephen's?
In addition to the virtual opportunities that Gina mentioned, we have taken a step back and tried to figure out a way to communicate with parents. We know that drop off and pick up is a very brief moment in time. And so we do have parents that want to learn more, want to understand a little bit more about what we're doing. So we've created some newsletters that are going out to parents that highlight each classroom, the activities that are going on, ways that we can provide that continuity of learning from the classroom to home. We have also secured a grant to send home literacy book bags so that parents are able to do some of these literacy activities at home with their children as well. So trying to kind of think outside of the box of ways since the pandemic started. In the past, of course, we had our parents here and participating in different activities, but now we're really just kind of trying to think outside of the box to make sure that they're engaged in learning about what we are doing and how to help one another.
Great, thank you. I'm pretty sure that we could continue this conversation for another hour or more, but I think we're close to the time where we have to turn it back to Ryan for closing comments. Prior to doing that, I think it's really important for all of you to take just a quick minute to tell us about how volunteers can get engaged in the work of your organizations. So why don't we start with Jennifer, Bobbi, Kristin, and Gina before I flip back to Ryan. Please share with us what kind of engagement opportunities are there for folks who are with us today?
I'll piggyback onto what Gina said. For people that, we are very concerned right now about volunteers coming into the building, although they could do that on off children, times when their children weren't here. But our outdoor space is something that always needs attention. So I agree with Gina. It's maybe not the finest work, but knowing that you're cleaning up that space for our children to be able to really get into that dirt and discover the outdoor world, that's a great volunteer opportunity. And so I can put in the chat if you want anybody could, well, I can send that out to you guys to reach out, but that's a great place, keeping our outdoor area safe and clean.
Thank you.
And it's pandemic friendly.
So I will add that, yes, we absolutely can use manpower on our playgrounds and painting and landscaping. In addition, because of the pandemic, we now offer a virtual option for preschool, and it's 100% virtual for those parents that aren't comfortable with bringing their kiddos. So we have some opportunities there for volunteering. Someone could come in and read a story during one of our Zoom times. We also have in our classrooms recorded stories. So if someone was interested, they could read a book, we could record it and then put that in our classroom library with the book for the kids to listen to. In addition, if there are talents that you have and you're willing to share, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Right now, we really need help with getting some qualified candidates in our positions. And that, I think, goes for all of us. Workforce is a huge issue right now. So if anyone wanted to help spread that word, we would absolutely take you up on that.
Thank you.
I just jump into and piggyback on what Bobbi said, that we definitely, if you could spread the word, if you know qualified individuals who are interested in working with children, again, passionate, dedicated individuals, that would be great. Additionally, we've done some things in the past virtually. So we've had virtual music classes, some virtual reading buddy programs. So those are definitely things that we are open to exploring and trying to figure out a good way to make sure that it's safe. But our students absolutely love. We roll in our smart board, so it's a large screen for the students, and they absolutely love those activities. So those are some ways that people can get involved.
Great, thank you, Kristin.
And I think just to add to, supply chain is a big issue. And so many of us are having difficulty getting a hold of things like plastic cups, plastic spoons, forks. So if your company is interested in being involved, you could do a supply drive for an early learning program in your area, helping with paper towels, cleaning supplies, all of the Clorox wipes, all those things that we need right now to keep going on a day-to-day basis. That is an extra expense, I think, is one way that you can be involved. But I think what everyone else added are also all opportunities that we have been giving to volunteers throughout the pandemic. And then also the holidays are coming up. And so many of our children, need a buddy or somebody to kind of adopt them and possibly their families for the holidays. So if you are interested in that, I know that many of us have programs where we do try to provide holiday gifts for all of our kids in one way or another. And United Way will also be doing a holiday gift drive again as well. So your staff could go out and go shopping and maybe, do a safe socially distanced lunch together, but shop for kids. And then those presents come to each of the United Way agencies for us to help provide a holiday for the families that we serve.
Thank you, Gina. Ryan, I think we'll turn it over to you for closing remarks now.
Well, thank you, Shannon. And thank you to our panelists, Jennifer, Bobbi, Kristin, Gina. Thank you for participating today. But mostly, thanks for the work that your organizations do. I was reminded in conversation today, the appreciation that we have for you and your workers and the leadership that you're providing in this space is something that we want to express today. Kristin, you mentioned our community is benefiting from the passions of workers in each of your organizations, and that really resonated with me. And so just thank you for participating today, but thank you for the work that you're doing on a daily basis. Of course, Shannon, thank you for moderating our conversation today. This was a really rich conversation. We thank you for guiding us through it. Of course, thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation, have learned more about what we can all do to support this important work. At United Way, we've been committed to kids and families in Central Ohio for nearly 100 years in this community. And we're committed to working alongside our community and for our community toward a better tomorrow. As was mentioned, there are many ways to get involved in this work. United Way brings together donors, volunteers, advocates, nonprofits, leaders, and more to take on Central Ohio's toughest challenges. We can help plug you in if there's a space that you heard that you want to plug in today. We hope this has been valuable to all of you and that you'll continue to join us for future conversations like this one that can be found at liveunitedcentralohio.org/events, because our community is stronger when we show up united. Thanks again to all of you who participated today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.